Hello everyone, my name is Phong from Group Number 8. I'm very glad to be here today and it's kind of pleasure. And I also to admit that it's a little bit of nervous because I will be the first one in my team have the important mission that is providing for you guys a good beginning of this presentation today. So I hope we will have the great time together. And if you have any kind of questions, please keep it and feel free to ask us when everything is done. So okay, let's start it. Today we will talking about chapter 9 and the topic is about processual turn, politics, context and time. Actually, there's some notice that I think we should know before starting. This chapter, you guys can imagine it's just like a collection, a storage of tons of study and research from many authors and scientists, and they are related to the development of the change process in the context of organization or in any kind of different context. And I bet that you get some confusion when you're trying to read and understand this chapter by yourself. Trust me, we struggle the same problem. But you don't need to worry because we are here with the hope that we can provide for you guys a clear roadmap, a clear outline to get the flow of the content of this chapter easier. So yes, don't want to waste your time anymore. Let's get it. Okay, in this slide, what we have a general outline of our presentation. First, I will give you guys an introduction as the overview of knowledge that chapter 9 is cover. Secondly, we come to the laying foundation part. Right after that, we mention about the temporality. Or we can simply understand it's all about the time, one of the dominant elements in the theory of change. Next, we will have two sections focusing on the terms of storying in the organizational change. So what is it talking about? We will find it out later. In the fifth section, we try to highlight the approach from two amazing and famous authors, Butchart and Bartham. Finally, there is another supportive and interesting perspective from Dawson. So okay, that's an outline. And now we will come to the first one, a general view of this chapter. So as you can see from the title of the chapter 9, you can easily guess that what are the three main perspectives, three main factors in the theory of change or in the processual turn. Yes, they are politics, context, and time. For the politics, for easy to catch up this term, it's all about the behaviors. It's about the skills and the expertise that affect to the management of change in different contexts in the organization. And additionally, the highlight point in this chapters, in this section, is about at the beginning, people initially prefer to refer to the two perspectives whenever they have the discussion on the change in organization. They are politics and context. It means that they are left behind the other element, the time. So from this, we can have the very first judgment that time was underestimated and was not in many studies. But later in this presentation, that perception is changed. So yeah, I have provided you guys a basic structure as the main focus area of this chapter. So hope you guys can get that. And now we will turn to the second part, laying the foundation, processual contextual perspectives. In this section, the writer provides for us a timetable with milestone and related events over the time from 1960 to 2010. Okay, we will see from that table, we will see how the process of change is determined, constructed, and fulfilled over the time. they provide for us several approach and perspective from many authors and scientists at that time. They might conflict each other, but they have the same goal of clarifying the change process in the workplace. And as the information, do you remember we mentioned in the introduction part, people initially just focus on discuss the change in the workplace by two factors, by two preferred factors. They are politics and context. And we can easily observe that tendency in the period of time from 1960 to the end of the 20th century. So come to the table, we will have the detailed look. In the 1960 era, people testing the relationship between management and worker. They also testing the variation in the behaviors and interests in an organization. So come to the years of 1980s, with the appearance of new technology, people start to test the implication of those updated technology into the organization and social context. Keep moving on. We have the 1990s. This year could be viewed with the event that they finding out that the difficulty in the previous study when apply them into the practice. And the content of this previous study is about the richness and the complexity of a multi-level analysis. So, and how about the 2010? Up to this time, people realize that they have a huge mistake of the absence of the time element in many studies in the theory of change. So to make up that mistake, a great number of modern research have been carried out, and as a result, it leads into the expansion of knowledge, and as well as creating new topic, new aspect, and new issue in the theory of change. So yeah, that's an overview what will happen in the past. So yeah, I think we should take a deep breath before continue the next part. So are you ready? Okay, in this third section, we'll focus on a deeper understanding of the time element, which I usually mention. It was largely ignored in the beginning, but time has changed everything. The important points in this section that the writer tried to highlight is that time is the central of change. It is certain to get that fact, but how that concept is delivered and answered, we'll find out later. And also in this part, you guys can read from the textbook as well, and you can see that Dawson and Sykes provide more analysis and to strengthen and support the concept of time in the relation to the study of organizational change. And one more useful tip that I want to let you guys know to have a well understanding of this section, that is, it's better for us to get used to the terms of objective time and subjective time. Okay, move to the next slide. We will together to explore the two terms, objective time and subjective time. What are they? So first, about the objective time. Objective time is used to refer an agreed standardized system of interval that are used to describe the time. I mean it can be measured and characterized through the use of log and calendar. And how about the subjective time? Subjective time refers to the way people differently experience time intersubjectively. For example, the duration of the sport event that can last to 2 to 3 hours, or the time that you are waiting in the hotel lobby. I believe that is an easier way for you to get the terms of subjective time. But the question is, why do people have to split the time into two categories? What is the purpose of doing that? Okay, so we come to the function of objective time. it enables to check a time framework of key events and turning points. You can imagine that the event department in the organization, they are the one who cope with the problem. They are the one that will create the schedule that involve the events, that involve the activities, and the time as well. So I think it's clearly that objective time as the clock and the calendar is the powerful tool for them to carry out that action or activities. So, and how about the subjective time? Their function are enabled to interpret people different views on the same event through the stories. And it also support to uncover the interaction between the past, present, and future to the process of sense making and strategic decision. Those concepts and their usage were optimized to understand the importance of time in the process of change, even though there are still some critical perspectives that are against to the acknowledged concept. However, most people agree and admit the dominant appearance, the dominant existence of time in the theory of change. Uh, then people continue to make use of this asset from those studies to address the new term. I think that we need to pay attention the storying process of change in organization, and it consider it as an integral part of the process to change. And yeah, I think that's all for my part. Please welcome my friend to help you address the new section that I have mentioned, storying process of change in organization. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Tae and now I will continue with my group presentation. Let's turn to the first part of my talk, which is about storying, process of change, narrative, and dialogue. So, what is narrative and dialogue? First of all, about the narrative, it is set up past event or the series of events into the experience using coherence to achieve believability. And dialogue is the conversation or the other form of discourse between two or more individuals. Generally, both of them are the two ways in which the story is told. That's the definition of the narrative and dialogue. When we come to the next part, stories present a view of event and other situation with the aim of engaging other in collective, meaning the construction and a sense of coherent to complex set of event in reducing the equivocality of organizational life. That's also more about dispersion of event in the present and anticipated to be achievable in the future. Moreover, the stories are integral part of change processes in organization and in increasing the number of study are public that examine narrative and stories that relate to organization change. And storytelling in organization is about how the people and organization might have become popular in the social science and in the field of management and organization. To sum up, in the context of changing organization, there is a significant rise in storytelling and storying that spark the sense making and sense giving processes. But the question is, how can we link the storytelling with the development of process framework for explaining change? To answer the above question, David Bose defined the storytelling organization as the collective story system in which the performance of stories is the key part of the members' sense making and means to allow them to spark individual memories with institutional memory. That included two aspects that need to be focused on this study are retrospective sense making and prospective sense-making. Especially, he tries to examine and clarify the prospective sense-making when it largely ignored. So that's about to explain how we can link our theorization of organizational storytelling with the lived experience of storytelling in everyday life. And now we continue with another study by the examination of the John Creenat that gives the view of storytelling could accurate the dialogue between the different members of audience. From that, it's quite clear to observe the change is the multi-story process, and story play a role of the making sense of what's going on from the people experience, and the same process what it described. And you need to understand what is the process. Is it the dynamic and ongoing? And we also set this process and influence the other and set the change describing. And is it increase in the time of change, uncertainty, and complexity? Especially the change has seen as the multi-story process, because there can be individual and collective story in mode and continually reconstituted. All the story draw the past, present, and the future. And the different chain the story are promoted among the different groups or the level in organization. Also mean the needed to consider the storyteller and the audience as the story are crafted for different. Furthermore, to clarify the above opinion, we need to understand the definition of the sense-making and sense-giving. Firstly, the sense-making is mean that how a person observes an information, including accept or the reject, based on the cognitive capability by making sense obtained after that happen is common through the retrospective but also prospective. And the third in sense making is not for accuracy but for the plausibility. As well, we turn to the new term sense giving. That means how a person trying to sense is attempting to influence the other perceive and accept the certain situation. In given sense to experience and the events, we often seek to share our views and influence the interpretation of the other through story. So to use this define to manage change in organization, there are some conditions to use that the prior relation and existing power dynamic. Another book is The Narrative of Organizational Change and the Learning, making sense of the testing time by the Reisner. That examine narrative of organizational change and the learning. In that book, understanding of the people change experience are limited, and that in the set for many of the people continually call it, tell, and exchange the story to make sense of situations that may appear temporality. Regards the study of the Reisner, she carried out 3 case studies about evaluating the narrative of organizational change, and this study illustrates how change affects groups differently within and across organization, and how they are both the winner and the loser of the change. Therefore, the storytelling is the center during the change process in both the shaping individual experience of change and in enabling them to make sense of the change they experience. So the complexity of organizational change is determined the storytelling and narrative process that often involve many aspects such as politics, power relationship, and change agency. These aspects of change could be tackled by Buchanan and Burnham approaches, and my friend Gilby continue.
Hello, my name is Trần Ngọc Thùy Linh and I will be continue with part 6,
This is Buchanan and that have political entrepreneurial approach to managing. First of all, I will tell you about the political natures of change agency. Change agents become involved by necessity in the exercises of power in political engagement and interpersonal influence. Power and politics is accepted and is dimension of change agents' role. Let's look at the framework. They argue that the managing change in quadrant 1, where change is critical to survival and challenge, is likely to require power coercive resolutions. This form of radical change is wide implications and has to manage fairly swiftly. Is contrast with marginal incremental change represented by quadrant 4, where there is time to negotiate over disagreements and concerns. It doesn't matter whether it's critical or marginal. Those approaches is above the line. It is challenge segment. It's going to involve some degrees of power existed steering. It's the person who's acting as change agents. What is going to present to happen by nature? It's challenge change. So this person will be introduced in a more participative manner. In this count, quadrant 3 is used to criticize accepted change, whereas marginal, in which extensive participation is possible. Everyone can be involved. Everyone can start to shape a nature of what is the solution. Quadrant 2, representative participant. There are several attributes of political entrepreneur. This is the table of these three attributes. First of all is intellectual equip. Recognize the value of competing approaches to understand the power and politics in the organization. Power sensitive. Understand the sources based on power and also how power is inbuilt in organization structures and systems, as well as practice every day. Number 3 is power builder, able to develop power bases through accumulating and applying appropriate resources and expertise. Behavior repertoire has a behavior repertoire, for example, range of interpersonal skill such as impression, management, conversation control, and influencing techniques. The important one is skill and will. Develop political skill, including a range of political strategies and tactics, and readiness to use these. Creativity in context, able to deploy behavior repertoire creatively and appropriately to fit in the context in a style that can be described as intuitive, artistry. The next one is structure sensitive, understands the combinations of factors which warrant political behavior in particular settings, those which suggest that other approaches could be more appropriate. Diagnostic compatibility, able to read a shifting politics of the organization and the change motives and moves in other stakeholders. The next one is positioning, ability to take and switch roles appropriately to maximize personal advantage, to address position, and to drive a change agenda. Plays in a long game, understands
the trade-offs in the tough game and is able to calculate when to lose a play in the game in order to achieve advantage later. Incredible accounting, able and willing to construct possible accounts of behavior when challenged and to defend political methods. Finally, is reputation builder, able to construct a reputation as a skilled political player and to sustain and develop that reputation persistently. To sum up, Buchanan and Bentham draw attention on the growing power plays and political activities, as well as the management of meaning in guiding the change process in certain preferred direction. They conclude in the list of 12 attributes required by change agents, which is political entrepreneurs who wish to be effective. Buchanan and Bentham's approach brings power and politics in the foreground, highlighting the touch realities of managing change in organizations will the need.
Okay, I will continue with the Dawson processual approach for understanding change. According Dawson approach, perspective on change see organizational change as a complex and a dynamic process, not something can be viewed as a sequence of linear events. First of all, change is complex and change initiatives are often complicated because change occurs continuously and experienced subjectively. The second, the processual approach states that the change is continuous and without a finite endpoint. Change is also a massive process that is shaped by an organization history, culture, and internal politics. Lastly, the managing change is difficult and political. It is often about keeping many things up in the air at the same time. The processual approach highlights the important context, including the history and culture of organization, time and temporality, and political process, power plays, and social that engage individuals and people in negotiation, in communication that may be misinterpreted or reinterpreted in various ways that create further uncertainties, ambiguities, and confusion. It also spotlights how this form may be progressively resolved through the collective sense-making and sense-giving process, also sustaining conflicting interpretation between different groups and interpretation that may be further reinforced through the process of change. Moreover, complexity is not sidestepped as the processual researcher set out to capture reality, in fact, with the past, present, and future studying and recording the behavior of people within and between organizations as the activity and action unfold over time. Okay, I will continue to talk about reappraisal of time for processual understanding. The processual approach for understanding organizational change takes time seriously in addressing how an organization moves from A to B. The temporal dynamics often understand within a broader contextual frame that accommodate the past and future, as well as the current ongoing process of change. In focus on the methodological and conceptual problems, Dawson emphasized that the significance of time in creating a process system for understanding change. Develop concept of temporal awareness and temporal fusion to reflect the interplay between past, present, and future, and between the modes of objective and subjective time. So history and process are linked to the same making and same giving that occur, in which understanding of the past and expectation of the future influence interpretation of the present. According to Darshan, there are three factors shaping the process of change. Firstly, the politics of change. That are the political activity of consultation, negotiation, conflict, and resistance which occurs within and outside organization. Talking political activity outside of organization, for example, the government pressure or competitor alliance or influence of division of large company, and internal political activity including a negotiation between trade union representative and the management, supervisory and operative personnel. They are people who influence decision making and the setting of agenda. And the context of change, that are the factors that reside within organization and business market environment. Talking about the external contextual factor, for example, the changes in the competitor strategy, changing the social expectation, technological innovation, and change in business activity. And the internal contextual factor, for example, that human resource, administrative structure, technology, products and service, history and culture of organization. Those are the factors that may be influence to the context of change. Talking about the substance of change that define the characteristic, social and material aspects. Also talk about the scale of scope of change range from the small scale to the large scale. In conclusion, there are three elements are ever changing because the process of change continue to the infinitely. Therefore, the substance of change influence and is influenced by the contextual and political elements. According to Darshan, there are three general time frames of the study change over time. Firstly, that the initial conception of a need to change is proactive or reactive in response to external and internal pressure for change through belief to meet the future competitive demands. This can be influenced by factors residing within organization, such as operational inefficiency or employee dispute, or factors from outside organizations, such as business press and media reports on the success of other organizations. The secondly, the process of organizational change. That's including number of different tasks and decision-making activity for individual and groups within and outside of the organization. For example, member of the senior executive group are usually the active decision maker on the strategy and change, like CEO or the chairman, for example. Thirdly, I was talking about the operation of new work practice and procedure. During this period, the contingency such as unanticipated technical or social problems may undermine the usefulness of the system in its replacement of traditional methods. As a result, this may cause conflict and confusion among staff and management and threaten the establishment of new working relations. According to the Dawson processual approach, Bernays doubts about the practical value of guidelines that do not give clear advice. He pointed out that the advice seems to be too abstract and cannot be applied in the real situation. However, it's not surprising that any attempt to offer the guidelines is limited, because they can never be the universal recipe for managing change. Therefore, it should not stop us from refining our organizational change. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.